Hello everyone. So I've decided to do a YouTube video on Ground Red, TUA style, stuff that I do, however you want to call it. I'm going to cut this into different sections to make it easier so you guys can come back to things without any trouble. And a style of anything isn't so easy to put it all into one continuous thing anyway, there are different segments. So to begin with, the most obvious part is the very much practicality of what you're doing with your swing. So firstly, before that, an introduction as to like how TUA style works. It's movement focused. It's making you as mobile as possible, and we get a lot of players that try to build their style around lots and lots of swings and blocks and stuff like that. We try to remove all of that. Now, obviously I'm a very old player and I played with a lot of old school players, and back then I used to yellow a lot, or at least at one point, and watching them and having a lot of success with my yellow at the time because I was heavily focused on it, I developed this style which is a mixture of the two. So it uses a lot of the kind of techniques of the old Ground Red plus the movement of the yellow basically, or at least somewhere in the middle of those two. And so in order to, and the advantage is that we can be very flexible in our Ground Red play, which is obviously a big focus of TUA style. And it's not easy. So far, I've tried to train loads of players, and I've had some successes. Thund and Fusion were very, very good with it. Idri's getting good, and obviously Terra's very good, but he does his own kind of style with it. Still same core ideas. He's mobile and he focuses on a lot of ground play. But I've never been able to teach anyone like the full extent of it, and I've had to repeat myself a lot. So this video is going to help. So I'm not going to try and waste any more time because I usually fucking waste tons. Beginning of it. First thing to notice is how we swing our saber. So I can't express it enough, but that is as simple as it gets. Assuming that the enemy's in front of me, it's a very much minimize the movement in terms of going right when you start the swing, cancelling out with a left tap, and not turning your saber, because this sort of stuff is bad as far as I'm concerned, as far as TUAs are concerned. Why? Well, firstly, it stops movement. If the more you swing, obviously the slower you are, and that allows the enemy to get control, especially if there's no one else like backstabbing them or anything. If you're just swinging a lot, then they can come around and circle you or position themselves in really good range as they like, and there's not much you can do to stop them. They're just waiting for you to finish or hit you in between your swings or whatever, and you're making it easy for them. Secondly, if I don't turn my saber, I get more movement in all directions basically, which is really important. It's not just backwards and forwards, it's all directions. You've got to be able to deal with kind of any situation, because at the end of the day, the players that swing a lot more and turn their saber are trying to use those as their solution to things. Whereas, yes, we can do those things. There are times where I swing 3 times, there are times where I turn my saber, but I also, and more often than not, use movement to kind of fill in the gaps, to be the solution to things, whether it is pushing into them or making it difficult for a staff to come close to me or whatever, and I'm just fighting them off. And the moment I turn, I'm committing, and it's a problem. So it's really, really kind of good to get out of the idea of turning your saber, even if you die like fuck at the beginning, which is going to be the case, because at some point you're going to start moving. Like, it'll become the first reaction and it becomes the solution to things. So movement becomes like opens up basically, and you start thinking of your playstyle in terms of movement, and it helps. And you kind of have to force yourself, because if you're not used to it, you just kind of you're very used to maybe something like this and jumping back and whatever. Movement and keeping it calm, no wiggle, just aiming it and just getting in control, you're going to find like a much simpler, less messy solution to things, and you're going to be able to control the range a lot better, i.e. stop them coming closer than you want them to be. Because TUA style more often than not is hit with the tip of the saber, like the end of the saber, rather than up close and like bashing. So get used to that. Get used to opening up your movement. Second part is how you aim it. Now, I can't express it enough. It's all related to the same thing with movement and everything, but don't do this. Like, fuck it. I'll use the posters. An example. Don't do this. Don't do this. You want this as your kind of core thing. I can aim with the absolute middle of that swing. I know it's a bit big, that thing, which is a bit of a pain, but you kind of got to get the exact middle. Like if I'm aiming for that, I know where the exact middle is. I know exactly how to hit it. Why? Well, firstly, movement. If it's square in front of you, the exact line, same as doing something like this, then you're balanced and either left or right. It's directly in the middle, and you can move, and you're not going to get manipulated and pushed around quite as easy, and you're going to have more flexibility to it. Secondly, it's going to be the longest part of your swing, the bit where your saber and arm are extended right in front of you. Obviously, is going to be the longest part. Same with doing something like this. And if you're pushing someone down, it's going to be the bit that you're going to be focusing on, and you're going to have less openings. If you're always aiming like slightly to your left, then the right side of you is open to attack. Same if you're doing like this sort of thing. You're skewered, you're on an angle, and that means that your movement isn't in line of where you want it, because you want it with your opponent, and your left side is open, and you can't see as much. You're not as aware. Whatever, and don't look down too much unless they're crouched and you're going for something underneath them. General play, you want to be looking around, you want to be aware of shit, you want to be calm, you want to be chill, you want to be aware of shit. You don't want to be looking down all the time and avoiding and not being able to see everyone, teammates and opponents. It's super important, and it will relax you a lot more because you're kind of more there's less pressure on you if you can see things, you know what's happening. So in old TUA, like especially when we had JA Plus servers, we would have the old maps where you could have like a Kyle Katarn or a post or something that you could hit, and we'd practice like moving in and hitting that and keeping really, really good aim and consistent range. I'm not saying you guys have to do that now, you're a lot better than what they used to be. But the idea is that you get it, and you're calm with it. You're not wiggling, you're not panicking, you're just letting the saber do the work, which is a big part of it. If you want to hit hard, you want to see those people, if you see the old school players that seem to hit really, really strong and clean and you don't understand it, it's because they're letting the saber swing through the enemy. They're not trying to do the work for you. When you see too much of this, you're losing power, you're losing control. Or if you try to like do some sort of circular motion, there are advantages to doing a bit of circular motion, but for now, don't. This is the cleanest, crispest, most crisp way of doing things, and you'll get much more control. And maybe as you improve and you go on, you'll add a bit more things in certain times. There are times where I do a little bit of turning, either way, depending on the situation. But if I'm controlling the movement, if I'm controlling the range, and that's kind of like what's important at the time, I'm always doing this. 99 or 95% of what I do is this. If opponent's crouched in front of me, or if a staff is really close, then I'm changing it up a little bit. But in general, if they're in front of me and the range is controlled, I'm just doing this, and I'm not worried about damage. I'm just worried about hitting them and controlling the ground kind of play. And what else could I explain? What else can I explain? Oh, yeah, of course. Positioning. Incredibly important. Just a little bit of it, because the next video will talk a lot more about the movement and the positioning. But one thing that you guys do an awful lot of, and it's fucking you over, is if we imagine a staffer especially, or someone in front that you know is going to be aggressive, you guys swing so early. And the moment you start swinging, you committed essentially. You can't unswing. And your only way to swing again is to swing a second time, and it's not quite the same. Chill. Watch their movement. Swing when the range is good. Swing when that swing's going to be effective, not when you're panicking a little bit or whatever. Yeah, there are times where, especially in team free for all, that you have one or two opponents in front of you and you just want to slow them down, and you just start doing something like this, so it's hard for them to push forward a little bit for a few seconds. Maybe you're just letting your teammate get reorganized and position behind you or whatever. But in general, you don't want to be swinging early. You want to be moving, and if it's like a 1v1 situation, pick the range, be good at that range, and be controlled. And if you get into that range and they push forward a little bit, just chill, just control it a little bit, and then move forward and push forward. But don't start swinging when they're a mile ahead of you, because once if the distance is too big, then they're just like, oh, I'm in control now. This guy's panicking. I can push forward and nothing can stop me. He's going to have to fall back in a second. He's well out of time and he hasn't got the options. So chill. Control it. Move. Use your movement, because that's the key of everything, and solve it like that. And I think if you guys start with those things in your technical department, so to speak, that's kind of the start of it all. In the next video, I'll explain movement and positioning, which is really important, because really, once we get down to it, as I've said with the movement, the focus isn't the swinging. The focus is the movement. The swinging just helps the movement maximize itself. That's some good tea. So at the beginning of your practice, as I say, get used to swinging like this without turning your mouse or whatever. Just follow the enemy around and keep the saber in front of you like that, not turning. And focus on the movement, which I'll show you in the next video. Anyway, thanks for watching. Peace out.